This is Jordan Peterson. Atheism is evil, and here's why. We're going to let him bloviate for quite some time because he's going to set this up for a while. He's going to recount the plot of Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment for us. And I've not read that, so consider me an illiterate dimwit on that front. But hopefully that won't be too pertinent. Because, and really, he's going to explain it to us anyway, so we don't need to read it. He's going to give us the Cliff's Notes version.
In Dostoevsky's book, Crime and Punishment, his main character, Raskolnikov, decides that he's going to commit a murder, and he has very good justification for the murder, and Dostoevsky's very good at this. He puts his characters into very, very difficult moral situations and gives them full justification for pursuing the pathway that they're pursuing. And so Raskolnikov, he's broke and starving, he wants to go to law school, his sister's about to prostitute herself, roughly speaking, by marrying a guy that hates her, that she hates, and he has contempt for her, at least acts in that manner. He's trying to rescue his mother as well, who's also in dire financial straits. He goes to a pawnbroker to pawn his meager possession so that he can continue to scrape by, and she has this niece, I believe it's her niece, that's not very bright, who she basically treats as a slave and is horrible to, and so the pawnbroker has this money. Raskolnikov is in dire need. He thinks, look, I'll just kill her. Because why the hell not? I'll take her money. She's not doing any good with it anyways. I'll free her niece, who's just lurking as a slave. She's got all these other people tangled up in her pawnbroker schemes. All that'll happen is the world will be a better place. And the only thing that's holding me back is conventional moral cowardice. And, Dostoevsky has his character in Crime and Punishment go through days, hours and days and weeks of intense imagination about this, rationalization about this, trying to justify himself, placing himself outside the law so that he can perpetrate this act, and telling himself with all the best nihilistic arguments that the only possible thing that could be holding him back is an arbitrary sense of indoctrinated morality. And so Dostoevsky explores that. He does commit the murder, and then of course all hell breaks loose because things don't necessarily turn out the way that you want. He gets away with it, however. Well, he gets away with it technically because no one knows he did it, but he doesn't get away with it in relationship to his own conscience. And so the rest of the book explores that. Well, Dostoevsky, I believe it was in Crime and Punishment, although he makes the same point in many of his books, he makes a very fundamental point, and this is the kind of point that I think that people who haven't investigated these matters down this particular literary and philosophical pathway never grapple with. Dostoevsky said straightforwardly, if there's no God, so if there's no higher value, let's say, if there's no transcendent value, then you can do whatever you want. And that's the question that he's investigating. And you see, this is...
All right. So after that long, tedious recap of Crime and Punishment, we finally arrive at the point that Jordan Peterson is driving at, which is, of course, just the famous Dostoevsky quote, which I'm going to paraphrase here, which is, without God, everything is permissible, right? The idea being that we need some sort of transcendent higher moral authority to prevent us from just wantonly murdering each other. So there's quite a few fucking problems with this, obviously. First and foremost, Christians murder each other all the fucking time. And in fact, God is very often used as a justification for murdering other people. And it's a way to even sidestep any sort of thorny ethical issues about committing a murder if you think, well, God has endorsed this murder. The creator of the universe has given the rubber stamp of his approval to this endeavor, right? And the God of the Bible frequently commands his people to murder each other. He'll tell people, go murder those people from the other tribe and cut off their foreskins and bring them to me, So this idea that God is out there staying people's hands from murder is ludicrous. If that were the case, then, you would see that the murder rate of people who are Christian and people who are atheist would be vastly disproportional in the favor of the atheists. Atheists would be out there committing murders all the time. Christians would, oh no, I can't do it because God wouldn't like it. But it's actually the opposite. Atheists are way less likely to murder other people. Now, I don't know that you can make a direct comparison there because there's a lot of other factors, income levels and so on and so forth. But still, there is no correlation between I'm an atheist, therefore I'm going to murder a bunch of people because what does it even matter, right? Of course, that's not how atheists view things. Even myself, as someone who believes that morality is entirely subjective, I've never murdered anyone. I have never gone out and fucking killed another person, even if I kind of on some level felt like maybe they deserve it. You know why I haven't done that? One, because I am not a sociopath. I might have some antisocial tendencies. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I'm like the most empathetic person that ever exists, but I do have empathy. And I think I'd feel pretty bad if I were to murder somebody. But number two, it's against the fucking law. And it's not like a little slap on the wrist kind of law either. It's pretty fucking serious. You murder someone, you're in some pretty big fucking trouble if you get caught, okay? And why is there a law against murder? Because a society that would permit murder would be really difficult to function. I mean, it would have a hard time chugging along. If you're just free to wantonly slaughter one another, odds are it's gonna be rough trying to make that a cogent society. And then there's always going to be reprisals going on. You killed my cousin, so I kill you. Oh, you killed my brother, so I kill you. You killed my mom, so I kill you, etc., etc., etc. So there's a lot of very pragmatic reasons why we don't abide by murder. There's a lot of very, biological reasons why we don't abide by murder. There are not any religious reasons why we don't abide by murder. In fact, a lot of murders are done in the name of religion. So, obviously, a deeply flawed way of looking at the world. Dostoevsky, maybe he was a great writer. In fact, I have no doubt that he was, even though I haven't read any of his shit. But just based on the esteem that he receives from the people he receives it from, I'm sure that he was very brilliant at what he did. But that line of thinking, this idea that God is this great moral arbiter that's keeping us in line, is horse fucking shit.
This is why I have such frustration, say, with people like Sam Harris, the sort of radical atheists, because they seem to think that once human beings abandon their grounding in the transcendent, that the plausible way forward is with...
I want you to just think of how stupid that phrase was just now. That he just said, they're grounding in the transcendent. Grounded and transcendent are fucking opposites. To say that human beings are grounded in the transcendent is absurd. Any human being who is grounded in the transcendent, there's a term for that. They're a lunatic. Because they should be grounded in reality. They should be grounded in the facts of life. They should be grounded in, hey, this is how reality works. Every goddamn time, it's always a philosophical argument. All we want is empirical evidence that God exists. Well, you're definitely not going to get that from Jordan Peterson. That's the last person who is going to value any sort of empirical reality. The guy just told you should be grounded in the transcendent, as if that made sense. So he's not going to be the guy.
What the hell is irrational about me getting exactly what I want from every one of you whenever I want it at every possible second?
I don't know. I don't know what's irrational about that. In fact, it seems like that's kind of what you went for in life. No, there's nothing irrational about that. From a rugged individualist perspective, there is nothing irrational about being completely selfish. But there's a reason that society does not incentivize that. And also, if you're just a brutal, cutthroat person, I mean, there actually is some pragmatic reasons not to just be brutally and completely self-interested. Because a lot of things that human beings have accomplished, a lot of the things that we've accomplished that have been worth accomplishing have been done through cooperation and working together and being able to function, not just as individuals, but as a group, as a collective. Now, that's not to say that individualism doesn't have its place, and that's not to say that there have not been completely selfish people who have thrived, but a lot of what has made society successful is people working together. That's like what society is, right? People working together, living together, forming some sort of, coherent social unit. And that requires putting a measure of selfishness aside. Now, there are some people who break that social compact and are punished for it. There are some people who are maybe a little bit more clever or devious or in a better position to break that social compact, and they're rewarded for it. But for the most part, society does not smile upon the selfish person. Society wants a contributor, right? Society wants someone who is not just for themselves, but is to some extent for the collective. So there actually is some pragmatic basis for not being a completely selfish prick. And once again, this is not to say that there aren't completely selfish pricks for whom it all works out. Unfortunately, there are. Jordan Peterson, I think, might actually be one of them.
Why is that irrational? And how possibly is that more irrational than us cooperating so we can both have a good time of it? I don't understand that. I mean, it's as if the psychopathic tendency is irrational. There's nothing irrational about it. It's pure naked self-interest. How is that irrational? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who's saying it's irrational. I'm not saying it is irrational. I mean, there's nothing irrational about self-interest, but there's also nothing irrational about cooperation. So therefore, there is an argument to be had there. The argument shouldn't be viewed through the lens of the individual, because obviously if you view it through the lens of the individual, the answer is always going to be self-interest, brutal self-interest. But if everyone is brutally self-interested, then you really can't have a functioning society. And if you can't have a functioning society, then everyone is worse off. Humanity as a collective is better served by human beings having some interest in collectivism. Now, I'm pretty individualistic myself. I consider myself to be pretty individualistic anyway. Maybe some people disagree. I don't really give a shit. But I consider myself to be pretty individualistic, but I know I have some collectivist tendencies because I think that that's rational. I think it's extraordinarily rational to want to contribute to society, to want to do something for the betterment of your fellow human beings, to want to make sure that the society that you're a part of benefits those around you because you want and expect that from them. If everyone is brutally self-interested, then everyone is going to be miserable because it's all just going to be jockeying for position against you. There has to be some balance there. I think that, you have to say like, hey, I can't be just for myself because then I'm just going to be kind of like lonely and isolated and miserable. And if everyone was like that, then the world wouldn't really function. You can't be totally collectivistic and just, I'm just a river unto everybody else, because then like who's looking out for you? I think you have to have some balance there. I think you have to say like, yeah, I'm going to look out for myself, but I'm also not going to be a completely selfish prick. This is one of the times when it's like, I think it's good to have that center lane, okay? I'm not always a center lane guy, but on the thing of like selfish versus altruistic, I think you're better off in the middle on that. I think if you're fucking too altruistic, you're basically a sucker. If you're too selfish, you're basically a prick. So kind of be in the middle. That's what's best for you. That's what's best for society.
Where's the pathway from rationality to an egalitarian virtue? Why the hell not?
I don't know who he's arguing with right now. I missed the part where he referenced who said that selfishness is irrational. I don't know.
Not every man for himself.
I think society embracing selfishness is irrational. I want to make that clear. So maybe it's me he's trying to respond to, but I don't know, because it doesn't really, what he's saying doesn't really counter argument. It's not really a counter argument to what I'm saying, because I'm saying that for society to embrace selfishness as a virtue would be irrational. For an individual to embrace selfishness as a virtue is not necessarily irrational in and of the context of themselves.
To me, I think that the universe that people like Dawkins and Harris inhabit is so intensely conditioned by mythological presuppositions that they take for granted the ethic that emerges out of that as if it's just a given, a rational given. And this, of course, precisely not Nietzsche's observation as well as Dostoevsky's. That's Nietzsche's observation. You don't get it. The ethic that you think is normative is a consequence of its nesting inside this tremendously lengthy history.
You don't need an actual transcendent being for that to be true. You don't even need the idea of one for that to be true. Like a lot of, I mean, every idea floating around out there today, every single idea that any person has some kind of roots in the past, has some kind of tradition behind it. Human beings, very rarely are they just sitting around and then spontaneously an entirely new notion enters their heads. Ideas evolve over time. Every idea has its basis in the past. And moral ideas, ethical ideas are no different than any other ideas. Of course, it has its basis in some tradition, perhaps a religious tradition. But that doesn't validate the religion. That doesn't mean that we have to go backwards in time. Because ultimately, this morality shit is subjective, and we should choose to follow the moral precepts that most benefit us. That's completely rational. We as a society, if we want to be a successful society, should embrace moral values and ethical precepts that yield the best results for us. That seems completely rational to me. Now, are there other positions that are also rational, that are also arguable? Sure. I'm not saying, I cannot say that I'm completely right here because, as I said, it's subjective. It's a matter of opinion. And I think that's where the discomfort comes from people like Jordan Peterson. I think that they hate the idea. They despise the idea that morality isn't somehow objective, that there isn't some ultimate provable truth. But never do they want to come up with that proof. They just want to, they want to point to it. Look, it's objective morality. Look, there it is. Look, it's from God. Look, it's from the transcendent. Look, it's from the spiritual realm. Demonstrate that to me then. Demonstrate that. Don't reference history to me. Don't say, oh, well, historically speaking, people believed that. No shit. Historically speaking, people believed all kinds of stupid shit, and they continue to believe all kinds of stupid shit today. I always want to ask these people, what if you find the objective moral truth of the universe and it's horrible? What if you find out that it's objectively right to be like a murdering, raping tyrant? What if it's morally right to just go out there and just hit people with chains, fuck you. I beat you to death, old lady. Ha 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 ha. What if the great moral arbiter of the universe is like, yes, that is good? Would you agree? You'd have to, right? Because that's the objective morality. I'll stick with human subjective morality if that turns out to be the objective moral values of the universe. Thanks. I'll go ahead and disagree with objectivity on that one.
Much of which was expressed in mythological formulation. You wipe that out. You don't get to keep all the presupposition.
Why not? No, you can totally do that. You can totally, look, you can 100% do that. He's fucking wrong. You could totally be like, hey, here's a big book of fucking bullshit. Let's, there's some good morals in here. Let's take those out. Throw the rest of it the fuck away. You can do that. There is nothing stopping you from doing that. It's easy. You just say I don't think there was a fucking flood and some guy had two of every animal. I don't think there was a talking snake. I don't think there was a talking donkey. I think that's lies. Thou shalt not kill, though. That seems pretty tight. Let's keep that.
To make a rational argument, you have to start with an initial proposition. Well, the proposition that underlies Western culture is that there's a transcendent morality. Now, you could say that.
Oh my God, no. No. Western culture, literally, especially if you're talking about America, we came here, we murdered the indigenous people, we stole people from another continent, brought them here to do all the fucking work. Our history is just brutality and bloodshed and repression and just, you're black, take the whip. You're a woman, make my dinner. You're an Indian, die. you know, we're based on transcendent moral good. We're based on the ultimate transcendent moral good. By the way, when we killed all those Indians, manifest destiny. Oh, God wants us to do it. Where was our transcendent morality then? Our transcendent morality was saying, do it. Do it. Turns out God is just a fucking excuse. Turns out God is just whatever we want him to be. So maybe it's not particularly useful as an idea, huh?
That's a transcendent morality instantiated in the figure of God. That's fine. You could even call that a personification of the morality. If you don't want to move into a metaphysical space, I'm not arguing for the existence of God. I'm arguing that the ethic that drives our culture is predicated on the idea of God, and that you can't just take that idea away and expect the thing to remain intact midair without any foundational support.
Yeah, I can do whatever I want. I don't care. Most of it should crumble. And you know what? If it does, we can find a different basis for those things. I mean, the thing about the cynicism here of like, I'm not saying God is real, but I'm saying that we need to just believe the lie. Even if it's total bullshit, we just need to believe it because our morality is based on it. Well, if our morality is based on a lie, then maybe our morality is a fucking lie. But luckily, our morality is not really based on that anyway. We don't even really have some sort of monolithic morality in the first place. And to what extent we do, it's kind of just based on whatever's popular in our culture at the minute, you know? You know, Christian morality has not been consistent since its inception. It's changed plenty of times. There's plenty of stuff that's totally in the Bible is like, that's wrong to do. And no Christian follows it today. Because morality changes, morality grows and evolves. And it'll continue to do so, whether we turn back to God or whether we all become secular humanists tomorrow.